Today is, according to my diary, it is July the 16th, 2016. It is going on 8:30 at night. Still daylight. You can hear birds outside. I'm sitting in my study. Already got my diary ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow, if I'm still alive, I'll be on page 606. So yeah, today is a Saturday. I volunteered at the Book Nook, which is the Hendricks District Public Library used bookstore. I got some used books from the bookstore today, but they're down. I already put them away downstairs. But while I was at the Book Nook volunteering, when I wasn't helping people, I read today The Brothers of the Quill, Oliver Goldsmith, and Grub Street by Norma Clark. That's all I basically read at the Book Nook. And this evening I've been reading Gregory the Great on the Song of Songs, which is the Song of Solomon, which is in the Old Testament. You have the Psalms, and then you have Proverbs, and then you have Ecclesiastes, and then you have the Song of Solomon. So I was reading that because I've been reading today also Gregory the Great, Moral Reflections on the Book of Job, Volume 2. And I was reading this and I was thinking I would read it out loud to give you kind of a taste how it reads. I'm reading from Book 8 on page, it's on page 1. I'll be reading from page 194, 195 to 197. It says, Section 28:47. What man is that you distinguish him from or set your heart on him? God distinguishes humans by enriching them with the choice gift of reason, visiting them with infused grace, and raising them to the dignity of accumulated virtue. While humans are nothing of themselves, God grants them participation in his own knowledge by the free gift of his kindness. Yet he sets his heart on these same ones whom he has distinguished. He passes judgment on them whom he has gifted. He weighs their merits exactly and rigidly examines the weight of their lives. Then he exacts punishment as inflexibly as he has generously imparted his gifts to them. Let holy Job accordingly survey the immensity of God's majesty, and let him turn the eye of his consideration towards his inconsistency. Let him see that flesh and blood cannot understand that which truth himself teaches the Spirit. Let him see that even when the human spirit is uplifted, people are not strong enough to bear the trial that God conducts under the scrutiny of unshakable retribution. Let him say, what is man that you distinguish him or set your heart on him? It is as though he were to exclaim, man is distinguished by a spiritual gift, yet he is flesh. You, God, examine his life after such a gift without compromise. Yet if you pass judgment on him without compassion, not even if the spirit be raised to righteousness, can it bear the weight that hangs over him because you distinguished him. Even your gifts magnify him above himself when he stands for the scrutiny of interrogation. His weakness causes him to cringe. So Job is right to add. Section 9:48. You visit him at dawn and you quickly judge him. Who is there who does not know that dawn refers to the time when the night is already receding and the brightness of daylight is coming? Consequently, the darkness of night hems us in, and even evil doing dims our sight. But night turns into light when the knowledge of truth enlightens the darkness of our going astray. Night turns into light when the brightness of justice enlightens our hearts. which the blindness of guilt had darkened. Paul had seen this dawn arise in the minds of his disciples when he said, "Night has faded and daylight has approached." Romans 13, verse 12. Accordingly, the Lord visits us at dawn, when he lights up the darkness of our erring ways with the daylight of his knowledge and raises us with the gift of contemplation and elevates us into the tower of virtue. But we had better notice that as soon as God visits us at dawn, he immediately puts us to the test. How? By drawing near, he leads our hearts to acts of virtue, and by retiring, he allows us to be smitten by temptation. If, you see, after being gifted with virtue, the soul were not to be assaulted by temptation, we would boast of virtues as if we had gotten them by ourselves. So in order that we may both have the gift of fortitude and humbly know our weaknesses, we are exalted on high by an increase of grace, and by its absence we are shown what we are on our own. This truth is rightly endorsed by the reading of sacred history, where it is mentioned that Solomon received wisdom from God, yet after the reception of that wisdom he was at once challenged by the question of two harlots. As soon as he was given the grace so great a revelation, he endured the quarrel of the loose women. It surely often happens to us, you see, that once we have been granted virtues, consideration of the interior bounty enlightens our mind, but then loose thoughts quickly upset us. When our mind is heightened by this priceless gift and is jubilant, it is struck by temptation, and we realize what we really are. It was like that with Elijah, who was visited at dawn and opened the sky with a word. Nevertheless, his trial came suddenly, and he fled through the desert in his frailty because of his great dread of one woman. It was like that with Paul, who was led to the third heaven. When he got there, he contemplated the mystery of paradise. Nevertheless, he returned to himself and fought hard in the war against the flesh. He held at bay another law in his members. He complained that the spiritual law in him was hard, pressed by the rebellion of the other law. Accordingly, God visits us at dawn, but he tries us at once upon his visitation. By bestowing his grace, he supports us, and by withdrawing it slightly, he shows us to ourselves. And this cycle we undeniably endure to the point where the stains of sin are so completely washed away that we are substantially remade in the form of the promised incorruptibility. So Job is again right to add, "How long will you let me alone or distress me that I may swallow my saliva?" Saliva falls into the mouth from the head, and from the mouth it glides to the stomach where it is swallowed. What indeed is our head but divinity? It is by divinity that we receive the principle of our existence, so that we may be creatures. Paul is our witness when he says, "The head of a man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God." And what is our stomach but the mind? When the mind receives its food, which is obviously heavenly perception, beyond any doubt is refreshed thereby and rules its members in all their actions. If Holy Scripture, you see, did not sometimes call the mind the stomach, Solomon would certainly not have said the spirit of man is the Lord's lamp, and it searches out all the hidden places of the stomach. The favor of God, notice surely enlightens us, and when it does, it uncovers for us all that is tucked away in our mind. What is meant by the word saliva but the taste of interior contemplation? Saliva flows down to the mouth from the head because it is from the Creator's glory that while we are still living in this world, a bare taste of revelation touches us. So at his coming, the Redeemer mixed saliva with clay and restored the eyes of the man born blind. Because the grace of God enlightened our sensual thoughts through the admixture of his contemplation and recreated humans for intelligence of the blindness they were born with. Once they were exiled from the joy of paradise. Nature brought them forth into this foreign land, so that they grew up, as it were, without eyes. But as Holy Job suggests, this saliva falls into the mouth, but is not swallowed, nor does it reach the stomach. Although the contemplation of God touches the perception, it does not fully remake the mind, because the soul is unable to see it perfectly, but as yet only fleetingly glimpses it, since the darkness of degenerate nature impedes it. Look now, the minds of the chosen ones already control earthly desire. Already they leave behind all that they consider to be passing objects. They already cut themselves off from the external delights and diligently search for the good things that are invisible. In the course of these attainments, they are often seized by the sweetness of the contemplation of heaven. Already they see something of the internal realities, though as it were darkly, and they strive with ardent desire to be among the angels in their spiritual ministries. They feed on the taste of unlimited light, and having been lifted up above themselves, they disdain to fall back into themselves. The incorruptible weighs down the soul, so they cannot stay near the light very long, but see it only fleetingly. The very weakness of the flesh pulls the soul down when it is rising above it and still gasping for breath, forces it to think of base and necessary things. Accordingly, saliva flows down from the head and touches the mouth, but it never reaches the stomach, because while the liquid of heavenly contemplation indeed flows already in the intellect, the mind is still not satisfied completely. Only the taste is present in the mouth, but satisfaction is in the stomach. So we cannot swallow saliva because we are not allowed satisfaction from the ecstasy of heavenly glory, but just taste it lightly. It is true that whenever we know heaven in this life, it is because God is compassionate on us. Still, we cannot know heaven perfectly, and as a result of the punishment of the ancient curse. So Job is right to say, "How long will you let me alone or dismiss me that I may swallow my saliva?" He might as well say outright, "Then will you really spare us when you admit us to perfect contemplation of yourself, so that we may be inwardly absorbed and see your glory, and that our degenerate flesh may not impel us outside. Then you allow me to swallow my saliva when the taste of your glory overflows in me abundantly and satisfyingly, so that I may never hunger again through desire of that taste. I will then contentedly exist in you, and my mind's stomach will be well watered." So that's a taste of Gregory the Great from the More Reflections in the Book of Job. That's what I was reading today, and that's what I've been reading tonight. And so that's what I wanted to share with you. Tomorrow is Sunday, a new week, and already going through the last half of the month of July. So I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you in the future. Bye.